But we're living in a society now where if you've got skills and if you've got a passion, you can create money from that. You're only a failure according to what other people are saying. But the reality is nobody's ever a failure, because knowledge just does not stop at your GCSEs. It doesn't stop at your A levels. It is a lifelong process. I coach many professionals, high-end professionals, who want to leave their job because they're not passionate about it. They don't love it.
Hello everyone, I am so excited. As you can see, I am setting up to interview Sobia Joaid. Sobia Joaid is an international speaker and a professional leadership coach. I have been collecting questions from parents and students over the last few months to ask to Sobia. Things that are of concern due to this lockdown and the mental impact that it has been having on people. And we will be exploring the question, does education define success? So stay tuned. Welcome. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to pose some questions to you, which I've been collecting on behalf of students and parents over the last few months. Before we begin and before I start with those questions, if you could just maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, what is it that you do, and give us a little bit of information.
Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me. I'm really honoured that you've asked me to do this. And a little bit about myself. I'm a leadership and confidence coach. I help professionals have breakthroughs in their confidence so they can lead with clarity, purpose, and resilience. That's what I do. As well as that, I'm a international speaker, and I also come from a kickboxing background. I'm a European kickboxing champion, and I use my skills to do motivational speaking and essentially help people to live a life that they want to live, and a life whereby they feel they're really embracing their strengths. And I do that with my speaking and with my coaching. I also come from a teaching background, so I worked as a secondary school biology teacher for almost 15 years, and then I've transitioned into full-time coaching now.
Thank you so much. I understand that you came across a video which I made back in November regarding the mental impact of the lockdown. So you saw that video, and what were your feelings about that?
So I reached out to you when I saw we're connected on social media, and when I saw that status, it really struck me, because I've previously come from a teaching background, and although I'm no longer in the teaching profession, I have people around me who are still in school, in education. My own daughter's still in education, and I really felt from a personal point of view that this area really requires some support. And I think it's important for anybody from any background, if they can offer their support to help people, regardless of where they are, whether it's students or teachers or any other adults, to get through this pandemic in a more positive way and contribute those skills. I think that's really vital. So I felt that I wanted to reach out and just help support you and the people that you're contacting and you're impacting as well. I think it's really important, and that really resonated with me, and so that's why I reached out to you.
Once I told people, they were excited about the kind of help that they can get from somebody who is an expert in this field in terms of motivation, giving them some sort of tips and guidance. So let's get straight into the questions. A lot of students, they say that they are feeling anxious, they're lacking motivation, they have low confidence. And the remote learning that's happening right now because of the stop and start effect of schools closing and then going in for a bit, cancelled exams, it's very disruptive. So, if you have a look at a student who's currently in year 11, for example, it's not just year 11 that's been affected, it's year 10 as well, because it happened back in March 2020. If you look at year 13 students, a lot of them are thinking about the next step in their lives, university. They didn't have a great year 12. So there's a lot of anxiety, some may even say depression. And even when schools were actually operating, it wasn't the same. Half the class was missing. Teachers were maybe sometimes self-isolating themselves. So, the materials that were being taught wasn't with the same sort of flow and following the schemes of work strictly with the same pace. So the question that I pose to you here is, how does a student change to become more confident and to become more motivated?
And that's a really good question. I think the key thing here, from my perspective, is that we're in the midst of a global pandemic. It's not just students here in the UK who are impacted by the outside events because of COVID-19 and because of the circumstances. The whole world is. That is the reality of our situation. And the reality also is that leadership is not clear, regardless of where that is, whether that's in school. So there's a stop the start, there's governments making policies, there's a lot of things that are out of our control. And when things are out of our control as individuals, we have this impact within ourselves of feeling really anxious. And when we look at control, actually within ourselves, we still have control over certain things, and that learning can still take place. The start is something that is impacting people, especially pupils, but the reality of it is that it's important to take the bigger picture into account, and that is everyone's being affected by it. Nobody really has any clarity, and it's something that is out of our control. So looking at the reality of it is really important, and then looking at what you have control over as a student, the work that you've got to do, how you manage it. And it's true, the other reality part of it is that you won't be sitting exams. Normal classroom teaching isn't taking place. But as long as you're learning and you're making progress and letting go of expectations, expecting to get the same grades, that pressure of trying to perform at the same level as you would have had you been in school, had you had the normal teaching, is something that's not possible. It's just impossible given the circumstances. So there's a few things here: managing your expectations, controlling what is in your control. So the work that is being sent, doing that, making sure you're learning, making sure you're progressing. And also then the fact is that being kind to yourself. Anxiety usually is occurring because there's a lot of pressure you're putting on yourself. And so having time to slow down. You can't work as you would in person online. It's just not possible. If you think you're going to have a 6-hour day on the laptop doing schoolwork, it really is not going to be something that works very well for you. And it will cause you to be a bit stressed out, a bit anxious. So there are a number of different factors here. And being kind to yourself is really important, to let go of those expectations. And I know that is really difficult, especially when you're doing year 11 exams or you're in year 11 and it's such a milestone in your life, and same with year 13 or year 12s. But it is the reality of the situation.
Mhm. Thank you. I like the fact that you touched upon being kind on yourself, because I think a lot of students are quite harsh on themselves because they feel like it's their fault. Are there students who may be too kind on themselves and they're not doing anything? So they're using this lockdown as an excuse not to do anything, and this is where they go into total, demotivation and lack of confidence. When they come back, start it up again. Can you just address that?
Yes, definitely. And I smile because when I talk about kindness, that is in balance. So, bearing in mind whatever I'm saying, I am making the assumption that people who listen to this will listen to it in a mature way. So, I'm talking to the students here. And this is also for the parents, right? Because I see it from both perspectives. But going back to your words about kindness, in balance, and that means taking regular breaks. That means not getting anxious about things that are not in your control. If school is closed, you cannot do anything about that. That is out of your control. What is in your control is the work that is sent. If you're doing it, fine. Sometimes the work that is sent is a lot of work, right? I get that. So kindness is not putting pressure on yourself to get everything done. Sometimes teachers send out a lot of work and it's just feasibly not possible to get everything done. So as long as there's structure, there's breaks, you're not stressing and getting anxious about things that are out of your control. You're being kind to yourself. So in the sense of taking care of yourself in terms of your mental health, your well-being. When I say well-being, that means going out, taking breaks, making sure you're not engaging in negative talk, and that's quite easily done given the pandemic. Everybody's WhatsApping messages, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. It's important to maintain a balance. And in terms of people who take it out of context and they're a bit too kind to themselves, I don't refer to that as kindness. That's just something that's going beyond the balance. It's taking the mick, really. It's where if you think you're being kind to yourself, being on the phone and just not doing any work, that's not kindness. That's being what's the word, irresponsible.
Irresponsible, I was just going to say. Now, this second question really touched me personally. So some students have been, really pressured by family expectations. They say that they're often compared to relatives and cousins who may be living in less privileged conditions than them. For example, cousins who live in council housing and overcrowded homes. Yet, those children are doing far better than them in school. And they're often compared. They say, look at so-and-so. They're doing really well. Why are you not doing well? We've given you everything. You've got your own room, whereas such and such share with 2 other siblings, etc. And then you have other students, children of immigrants, who have settled over here in this country, and they worked really, really hard. And they have this desire that they've always wanted to impress their parents in such a way that they have this dream that their parents will see them in the gowns of graduation, picking up that degree, that higher education certificate. However, they feel that things are not going well for them right now. They may be struggling with the work. They didn't realize how difficult it is. It's very easy to see that picture in our heads of success. Everyone may feel that they would also get there. But when you're doing it, when you're going through that process, it can be a struggle. It can be very, very challenging. They feel like they're going to be a failure when their parents won't see them there. The question I'm really asking is, what other options and outcomes are left for somebody after they find out that they have failed at something?
Really powerful question. And there's so many layers to that. So I'm going to address the first part that you mentioned. That really resonates with me because I grew up here in the UK. My parents were immigrants, they settled here. And there is an immense amount of expectation, regardless of what your background is. If you are expected by your parents or your family members or society to follow a path that essentially is going to give you success, and often from parents, that's usually going along the line of academia. Do well in your studies. There's like this hard and fast rule to success. Do your GCSEs, you pass them, do your A levels, go to university and become a doctor, engineer, or a barrister or a solicitor. And they're kind of almost set in stone. My own experience and my own view is that expectations are there by other people, and we can never meet other people's expectations. We're always either going to exceed some people's expectations or never meet them. They're other people's expectations, and they don't always have a positive impact on us. The most important thing to consider is, what do you expect of yourself? What do you want out of your life? Because that is an expectation you're setting for yourself. When it comes from within yourself, it's very powerful, it's very motivated, it's very focused, and it may not always resonate with all the people around you, but it is almost guaranteed that you will persevere. If it's something important for you, you will persevere with that. And so going back to the expectations, it doesn't matter whether you have a lot of money and you're living in good surroundings, or you have no money and you're living in a council house. The key thing is, what is your vision for yourself? What is your goal for your life? Because money gives us commodities, it buys us things, but growth and progress comes from within our own selves. So that's a key thing to really bear in mind, is that the students who are listening to this, you can have expectations from your parents and from family members, But really, ask yourself this: what do you want from your life? Because that is what counts. And if academia is not right for you, if doing well in GCSEs is not right for you, you're not written off, because maybe 20, 30 years ago, success and getting into good jobs was the only way to earn money and be successful. But we're living in a society now where if you've got skills and if you've got a passion, you can create money from that as well. And so just because you don't do well, and bearing in mind you've got to try, and if you don't do well in your GCSEs, given the circumstances, and it doesn't work for you, you're not a failure. You're only a failure according to what other people are saying. But the reality is, nobody's ever a failure, because each and every person on this earth, you have a unique set of skills. And what you have, I don't have. What I have, other people don't have. And it's really important to look at what you have, what skills you have, what strengths you have, what do you want from your life, and then things start to take a different path. There is an energy in what you do, and you will follow that through. You may need support and guidance. These things are interlinked. It really starts from the core. And I say this, that as year 11 students, you're about 16 years old, and A-level students, you're about 18 years old. You're still young adults, but do not underestimate the strengths and the skills that you have. And you're never a failure. And never let anybody tell you that either. I feel quite passionate about that, because I think sometimes in society and in certain cultures or in certain families, people are just like cast aside because they're failures. They haven't got their GCSEs, they haven't been to university, and then it has a knock-on effect. It's not true.
A lot of parents may be watching this, and some of them may be alarmed because they're spending a lot of time trying to drill home the importance of education in its own right, which is important. And here we have two educators who are saying to them that success is not measured by your grades, that you can still be successful. They may be quite concerned about that. So can we address that?
Absolutely. What I'm sharing is from a position of responsibility. And your grades cannot be a measurement of your success and your failure. Yes, in terms of academia, yes, in terms of education, but knowledge, and I believe this, knowledge is power. Knowledge just does not stop at your GCSEs. It doesn't stop at your A levels. It is a lifelong process. And so if you're seeking knowledge in an area which you're passionate about, and now we're in a society where people have knowledge about social media and they're using that to share their passions and their skills, and they've got followers and they've created a really viable business. That also is knowledge. They're sharing their passions, they're inspiring people. That is knowledge also. It's just in a very different way. And so, parents who are listening to this, I'm not saying education is not important. It is very important. However, if a child, because we all have different abilities, if a child is not cut out for the academic path, let's look at other ways where their passions, their desires, their skills and strengths can be nurtured. And I use this analogy that on one hand we have 5 fingers, and each finger is not equal to another. That is the same with our children, with people. One child may be absolutely brilliant at sitting down, doing their work, whereas the other child is just it's a chore to even get them to sit down for 5 minutes. They may not get the same grades, but again, what are you measuring that against? If it's just the grade system, absolutely, it's black and white. But what I'm trying to suggest here is that should not only be the success marker. Knowledge, seeking knowledge, is a lifelong path, and something very personal to me as well. I studied biology at A level and I did all the academic subjects. I went to one of the best universities in the country. I graduated with my biology degree, and I've taught at some outstanding schools across the UK. But the key thing is, I can honestly say that when I was confined to subject knowledge in my fields like biology, I found it very restrictive, because it's very easy to seek the knowledge, to apply it and pass exams. But since I've transitioned into coaching, I would say I've learned such a diverse range of skills that I feel I've been so much more enriched than I was when I was just concentrating on just one subject.
I even advise people now when students ask me for personal advice, which is should they take a university course which is going to last for 3 years and put them in debts of up to 50 grand perhaps, or should they look at apprenticeship courses, vocational courses where they can have hands-on experience. I find myself growing up, something which was quite ironic, that you graduate after 3 years or whatever, and you start applying for postgraduate jobs, and they ask for 2 years experience. And I wondered, like, how was I meant to get 2 years experience when I have been studying towards a degree? And it really left me very demotivated, very scared about my future. And you often find that you have fantastic graduates who have graduated with great degrees, that they're working in retail sometimes because they find it hard to secure a job after they've graduated. They're very smart, intelligent people. So there seems to be a flaw in the system. And what you're saying there resonates with my own experiences.
Those students and those parents who want their children to have, or the student themselves want a certain profession, so if they want to go into medicine or law, and there's a definitive way of getting there, there's a path to follow. But I just want to, this is what I'm offering in a very simple way, is that that's not the only way to be successful. There is a spectrum, and let's change our mindset as adults, parents who are listening to this, and let's not restrict the success marker. That is really important, because as a leadership coach now, I coach many professionals, high end professionals, who want to leave their job because they're not passionate about it. They don't love it. They feel it's not contributing towards society. And they're working towards moving and transitioning. And so, and as a coach, I help them bridge that gap and make that transition. And so, the key thing, as I said very earlier on, is what is it that you want? What do you feel passionate about? And I coach a lot around purpose as well. And to be in a place where you have purpose, going back to year 11 and year 13 and 12, 13 students, ask yourself these questions, because that inevitably is successful for you. I think the key thing is your skills, your strengths are unique to you, and do what is right for you, given a balance. I'm not saying do something extreme or go off the rails and become absolutely crazy at something. Be smart, get the support. And as parents who are listening to this, I think it's really important to break away from that mindset, right? We may have grown up with parents who had that mindset. As now parents of our children, let's have a growth mindset. Let's look at things with opportunity, with growth. And that's how our children are going to grow and be nurtured as well. When we're really strict as parents, we lose our children. And this is more to the parents. We lose our children. And sometimes we're in situations where it's important to think about a balance. And when we're balanced and our children have that understanding, there is a conversation that can take place. And children nowadays are very, very intelligent. Young adults are clearly very intelligent. And parenting is not a one-way process. It's a two-way process. I learn so much from the children that I'm surrounded by. So there's so much we can take away.
Thank you so much. That was listening to that, I was quite overwhelmed with emotions that I felt growing up. How can parents support their children in their home learning? What can parents do who haven't experienced higher education themselves, so they haven't gone through the process, who may be preoccupied with adult life and parent life, looking after the home, paying the bills, and worrying about those sort of things? How can they support their children's learning? And I know that you've touched upon it through the previous questions, but is there anything else that they can do?
I just want to firstly touch upon the fact that I do believe that just because your parents may not have gone through the education system, it doesn't necessarily mean they may not have a full awareness of what you're going through, but they may well have the skills to be able to support you. So I think it's really important, because I think sometimes it's very easy for young adults, students who are listening to this, thinking my parents have no clue because they can't speak the language or struggle with the language, they've never been educated, and it's almost like they don't think they understand. And I think it's important from a respect point of view that you recognize they may not understand your situation fully, but they clearly have experience which can support you. So I think it's important to make that distinction. The second thing I want to say is that parents can support their children in different ways. You may not be able to support them directly with the knowledge that's being imparted um, through all the online platforms, whichever medium they're using. But what you can support them with is a balance. And I really feel it's important that we take this into account and we embrace that. When I talk about balance, I talk about well-being, I talk about breaks, I talk about kindness. We're not robots. We all need breaks. So, as parents, make sure your children are having breaks. And when I mean breaks, away from computer screens, away from the iPad, away from the phone. And this is important for the students who are listening to this. In terms of yourself, for you to switch off, it's really important. Your body needs rest, but we're always surrounded by devices. The parents can support them, but really, whoever's listening to this, take some responsibility over your own welfare as well.
So we've come to the end of the interview now. If there is something that you could give as a takeaway point for the viewers, for both parents and pupils, what would that be?
For pupils, don't let anybody ever tell you that you are a failure. You are never a failure. And the key thing to remember is that you have a unique set of skills and strengths that nobody else has. And look at them. Do not compare and despair. And so that's really important to take on board and remember. And the other thing is that you may not get the grades, but that does not define your success. You can still grow your knowledge, still learn. And this is something that I want to also remind the parents of as well. Your child may not be destined to be in academia. He or she may be doing something different, which is contributing to other people. So it's important to bear that in mind.
Thank you so much. Is there a way that people can contact you if they need to seek further guidance or anything like that? Maybe you can share.
I will be tagged on this video and I'm on all the social media platforms. Just connect with me and I'll be more than happy to have you in my network.